Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Early Childhood Chats. We're excited to have you with us on the podcast. We've got my good friend, Zach Garsick here from Fusion Networks. We're going to be talking about IT basics. And Zach, I got to tell you, IT has become a big part of early childhood.
Absolutely.
So tell us who you are. Tell us about some of the work that you do and say hi to the folks out there.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Garsick. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Fusion Networks, and we are an internet and telco services provider. And we specialize in providing schools internet that gives them the resources and the speeds that they need for all the services that they need to provide to the students and the staff today.
So obviously the pandemic, massive need for technology.
Absolutely.
What are you kind of seeing now that the pandemic has weaned itself? Are we still pretty reliant on technology?
Even more.
Okay.
The need for people to be able to work remotely exposed the needs for better quality internet services. A lot of these schools just get the basics of what they need: home quality internet, and it's not reliable, not consistent. And you start to see now that when people are remote, all the applications that the schools need, you have to have better quality services. And the problem is the people who are the decision makers for these schools have backgrounds in finance, administration, facilities, and they don't know the right questions to ask or their needs are to be able to get the right services for their schools. So what we kind of focus on to help our clients and potential clients is to help them, give them the basic education they need for their services, so they can ask the right questions, hold their IT people accountable. Often what will happen is your IT staff will hold you hostage because they're the ones who know everything.
Yeah.
And so being able to educate yourselves is just becoming more and more important for these decision makers at the schools. And it's tough because they don't have the time for it, right? They have to do their budgets, they have to do their trainings, they have to get their staff equipped. But it's really worth the investment now of getting the basic education of IT so that you can understand what needs to be done. It directly impacts your school environment. One of the people in the sessions we were talking about over the event here was there's major issues now with staff bringing their own devices to the schools, laptops, computers, and it's compromising the networks in the schools, and is actually leading to issues with children, staff innocently giving students their phone to play something, and now all of a sudden they're going to an inappropriate website, and it can cause huge issues. So once you have those basic education and understanding of the basics of technology, you can now start holding your staff accountable, having the right questions, having the right discussions. How do we provide these services to our staff, families, and all that? And it's just a good conversation to start having now, because like you said, it's becoming more and more reliant on technology. You're looking at everything now as an app these days.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. A lot of bandwidth needed for all that stuff, I would think.
Exactly right. Exactly.
So what would you say are the biggest kind of missteps, or some of the biggest, I guess mistakes might be the better word? Like you go in, you work with a client, and you're starting to dig around their network, their internet, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing A, B, or C. Like, what does that kind of look like?
So I think the biggest misstep is not addressing it. We often go in and we see that the school and the staff has been suffering with poor connectivity, whether it's a poor internet service or poor Wi-Fi for years.
Yeah.
And it's something that can very simply be resolved with the right technology and the right product. And then also not understanding how E-rate works. So not everybody knows, but there are charges on every single internet bill. If you ever pull out your cell phone bill, the federal government actually has a little tax on there. And then they take that money and they use it to provide funding for schools, specifically to get quality internet services. So many of the administrators or decision makers aren't even aware of the program. The great thing, especially for Head Start, is you can sometimes get covered up to 90% of your internet service through the program. And that allows you to get a better quality service. That allows you to get a more bandwidth to be able to provide the services that you need across the board, but actually save you money compared to what you were paying previously. So the lack of information sometimes is the other big misstep.
So how do people kind of find out if they're eligible or enter into that? Or I'm sure there's probably some websites or something about E-rate.
You definitely want to get connected with an E-rate consultant.
Okay.
There's quite a few good ones that have been here at the event, and we can refer people to them if they need to. But a good E-rate consultant is going to go with you, get through all your financials to make sure you qualify, make sure that your student population allows you to qualify. And then they're going to help you get all your applications in, and they'll guide you through the process of making sure that you're getting what you need for your technology.
Okay.
There's actually two separate categories in E-rate. There's category 1, which covers your internet services. And then there's category 2, which also will cover parts of your network. And there's some very, very specifics. And that's why you would want to discuss with your E-rate consultant. But you can sometimes get your in-network Wi-Fi connectivity, firewall connectivity covered under those programs, and the management of it. And a lot of people just don't know. And so
Wow.
that information's out there.
I mean, I would think that bill could be kind of substantial every month if you can get some of that covered. That would be a big help, right?
Very significant.
So talk to me about, and these terms get thrown around a lot. So, you think about, gosh, when this internet started, we had dial-up internet.
Yep.
Then we kind of had people moving over to, I guess, cable-based, like it would come in the same way you could watch television.
Correct.
We've got people on, copper. We got people on fiber.
Yep.
What does all this stuff mean? What's the
Sure.
best one? Like, explain it, break it, 101 stuff. What does that mean?
So kind of the standard right now that most people are going to be exposed to is cable modems, cable internet, because that's what you have at your house.
Sure.
The difficulty with that is it is a small business class product, and it's considered best effort. So anyone who's ever had problems with their home internet knows they just do their best to get your services back up and running. And so that can be tough for schools because they can't afford to be down.
Right.
So the next level up from business class services are going to be enterprise services. The enterprise services, they actually guarantee your service. So if they have downtime, you'll actually get a refund, but it's much, much more reliable. So the likelihood of going down is less likely. That is going to be provided either over a copper wire or over a fiber cable.
Okay.
Now, fiber is usually the way it's provided because it allows you to get a better connection over longer distances, and it improves what's called latency. So a common misconception today, and everyone sees it, every ad you ever see for internet is bandwidth is the speed of your internet, right? So I have a 500 meg connection at home. That's how fast my internet is.
Okay.
It's actually not the way it works. Your bandwidth is kind of how wide the highway is and how many cars you could fit on the highway at one time.
Okay.
But what actually controls the speed of your internet is something called latency. And latency is almost like the speed limit of the highway. It's how fast the information that you're sending to the internet gets there and comes back. So enterprise services will actually give you better latency, and that better latency will give you an improved experience overall. In fact, you can actually sometimes have lower bandwidth at a cheaper price on an enterprise circuit than you would need for a cable modem or a business class circuit. So the quality of, let's say, a 100 meg enterprise circuit would actually outperform a 500 meg cable modem, potentially, depending upon what you're doing and how reliant you are on that latency.
So latency, I'm guessing, is some kind of distance or connection or something to what, other server? Like what?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you go to a website or an application, you're actually sending information over the internet to a server somewhere, to a computer somewhere.
Gotcha.
The joke is that the cloud isn't really a cloud, it's just somebody else's computer.
Okay.
So when you're connecting there, and so the faster that your information can get there and come back, the better your quality, the better your experience will be.
Sure.
So if you're ever, doing budgets at the end of the month, filing grades at the end of the month, and you're sitting there struggling because it's just slow, it could be something just as simple as improving the latency to your connection.
Well, there you go. Everybody talks about bandwidth all the time.
Correct. Yeah. It makes a big difference. Exactly.
So when folks get with Fusion Networks, kind of talk us through that process. What can you do for folks? How do they engage with you? Like what does that whole thing look like?
Yeah. So one of our biggest things that we do is we actually will partner with our customers, especially with the schools. So we'll come in and we'll do an audit to see what they actually need. We'll help them kind of figure out what their needs are, which is part of the E-rate process. And so we'll also work with your E-rate consultant.
Okay.
But then we'll also assist you with the transition. So we'll come in, we'll make sure that all your connections are made properly. And then any changes that need to be made on your network, we'll actually assist with that. So many schools don't have IT staff.
Right.
So we'll actually come in and consult with them and help them through the process. Now, we're not going to be going through and scrubbing viruses off computers, but we will come in and do everything we can to make sure that the transition goes smoothly, that you're educated on what we're actually doing so that you can be able to talk to it and speak to administration on the details of what we're doing. And then we'll even post more, or after install, we'll work with you to make sure that it's doing everything that you need. And we monitor the services as well. So if there are any issues or outages, usually we'll know before the school even does.
Wow. So, I mean, you're kind of a one-stop shop for
Correct.
all connectivity, I guess it would be.
That's absolutely right.
It's interesting to me, if you look, and some of the states still have licensing requirements that
Mhm.
require a landline.
Mhm.
But boy, oh boy, as I travel the country, the landlines are kind of going like the dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
So most people are now switching to voice over internet
Correct.
protocol, VoIP. What kind of impact does that have on a network? I would think that those are probably taking some resources. I don't know.
Absolutely. So phones don't use a tremendous amount of bandwidth, but it can impact the network. So we definitely need to have an audit done to make sure that the network can handle it. But it makes a huge difference when your phone system is tied to your building. So the old on-prem systems, the big boxes in the corner that
sure.
generate enough heat that you don't have to turn the heat on during the winter months. Are tied to the building. So during the pandemic, schools started realizing that they needed to be able to have communication with their teachers who are remote, and they started relying heavily on their cell phones, and it caused a lot of issues. Now with the hosted voice platforms we can actually, phones just need internet and electricity. So we can actually take those services and provide them anywhere.
Wow.
The other thing as well is we can, we host everything for them. So it's, if there's an issue at the building, power outage, or they have to leave the building, what happens now when parents need to reach the students, right? Or if there is some kind of event in the school where they have to vacate the building, they lose the ability to communicate through the phone system.
Sure.
With our hosted voice platforms, you can communicate from anywhere. So we can have cell phone apps. We have wireless phones that you can take anywhere with you.
Wow.
So now in unfortunate disaster scenarios, whether it's an active shooter situation or power outage or fire in the building, we're allowed you to maintain communication to your staff and to your parents through the phone system, and you don't have to worry about the building being the connection point. We take care of that for
Oh,
you.
that's really cool. And I know some of the teachers are, look, they're just a bit reluctant, and understandably so.
Mhm.
Like, I don't necessarily want every parent having my personal cell phone
Right,
number.
exactly.
So it sounds like through this service, you can actually utilize some of that technology to
Correct.
almost be blinded or something like that.
Yeah, so the applications that run on cell phones and tablets actually allow you to make and receive phone calls from the school's phone number.
Oh, wow.
So whether it's a school provided device or a parent or staff provided device, just put the application on and it allows them to communicate as if they're from the school. So it does add a layer of privacy, but in a way that allows you to have communication kind of anywhere, which is an excellent, it's a requirement these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't necessarily want to share your personal private cell phone with everybody. I mean, I can understand there's some
Exactly.
concerns about that, right?
Yeah.
So we're here obviously at the New York State Head Start Association conference.
Mhm.
I guess people say, well, what's Fusion Networks doing here at the conference? What are you guys up to?
So we're trying to connect with everybody. Kind of what I was talking about earlier is we really focus on educating the schools. So helping the staff and administrators just understand what needs to be done, how to communicate, how to ask the right questions. And then hopefully, obviously, we want to provide them their internet and hosted voice services. But it's been a great conference. It's been good being here. It was great doing some of the sessions as well and connecting with everybody. And we're excited. We're looking forward to being back next year and being in St. Thomas.
Oh, Virgin Islands will be fun. I'm glad you
Yeah.
guys are coming. So I know you're doing schools, you're doing Head Starts. What about other big, nonprofits or churches, or what is kind of your limit there? What's your sectors you're in?
So any business that relies heavily on internet services is kind of our category. So
Okay.
what I say is if your internet goes down and your business goes down, that's the type of services we provide. So we're not going to provide service for a barbershop, but we focus a lot on providing nonprofits. And so a lot of the large churches and schools, but then also financial sector, and then also a lot of medical sector.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot of large medical clients, and it's been very good good time of year for us.
Oh,
So,
well, congratulations. And thank you so much for being here.
absolutely.
Zach from Fusion
Thank you,
Networks.
man.
If you want more information, how do we get a hold of you?
Sure, you can reach us at fusionnetworks.net, .net, not .com. That's our website. And then you can also, do I give my email address?
Sure. Well, if
Okay.
you'd like to,
All right.
sure.
So you can always reach out to us at sales@fusionnetworks.net, and we'll be able to help you out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for
Thank
being
you very
here.
much.
Really appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.